title. President, CEO Carrie Mitchell for facilitating, bringing them in. Carrie, where are you? I know you're here somewhere too. Where are you? There you go. Thank you for bringing our young folks here. And now, without further ado, I'd like to bring up Mike Biggers, who is president of PNC Bank in Detroit, Southeast Michigan. He's our presenting sponsor. To say a few words, and those of you who know Mike know he's put his pedal to the floor in impacting our community. They're among those very involved in Marygrove, which turned that shuttered college campus into a catalyst for the neighborhood. Just one example. So Mike, come on up.
Good morning, team. How's everyone? Good, good, good. Mr. Mayor, on behalf of PNC Bank, thank you for your epic work in our city. Thank you. I know you're a man of action. I like to consider myself a man of action as well. And I'm so happy you have Marygrove here. Almost every board meeting I'm in, it's about Michigan being 30th, 35th, 40th in education, however you look at it. And you just get tired of it. You really do. I get it. You got to report it because it's data. But sometimes you just have to get in it. And that's what we decided to do in Marygrove. So thank you guys for being here. Our commitment in terms of what we have in terms of resources out to Marygrove, the young adults may not know this, is now approaching $110 million alongside our partners at Kresge and DPS. And so my job is to hold PNC accountable in supporting children and young adults of all ages. Your job is to hold me accountable to that. Thank you for being here. Enjoy.
Henry Ford Health is our other presenting sponsor. Henry Ford Health has been an important part of our region, and it's growing. Denise Brooks-Williams is Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of Henry Ford Health, oversees its hospital and service operation as it grows its footprint in Detroit. Please put your hands together for Denise Brooks-Williams.
Good morning, and thank you, Carol. Thank you for having us. Henry Ford Health is extremely happy to be a co-presenting sponsor with PNC. And I told Mike, I was like, you get up here and you do like 2 seconds. So I'm going to try to do it in 5 seconds. But seriously, we are super excited to be here because Mayor Mike Duggan is someone who is a tremendous partner to us. You all may have read that Henry Ford is on this adventurous journey of investing $3 billion in Detroit. That deserves a round of applause. And we're not, of course, doing that alone. The future of health really came to be with many people as I look out in this room that are imagining with us what it looks like to have a healthy region, to be able to be in an environment where we are also investing in young people and making sure that Detroit is a city, which we are all over the map now because of our amazing mayor, where young people want to come and stay. So Henry Ford is extremely excited for what we're going to hear this morning in our continued partnership. So thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Denise. And again, thanks again to all the sponsors, everybody for being here. This is really, really a wonderful way to spend the morning and hearing about something that matters to all of us, or we wouldn't be here on this bright and early Monday morning. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming our guest this morning, the one, the only, the Honorable Mike Edward Duggan.
Thank you, Karen.
Should we shake hands before we start?
For sure.
Because who knows how this will go. You never know, right? Well,
Better you than Jim Schaefer up here.
oh, well, so Jim, you want to come? So many of you know the mayor, many of you know me, and I'm going to take a moment of personal privilege for a second and talk about an inside joke between us that wasn't so funny to the mayor. This is not rehearsed. So I'm going to ask a question, and Mr. Mayor, are you considering running for governor?
Yeah.
You want to tell the story?
I'm not a hard guy to understand. And whatever the years were, 2014, 2018, whatever the governor's years were, every time there was an event, Carol would say, are you running for governor? I'd say, no, I have no interest in running for governor. The last time was at an economic club meeting. It was the year Gretchen Whitmer was running. And she asked me in front of this huge group, "Are you running for mayor?" And I just said to the audience, "What's the answer?" The entire audience shouted no at her. So Carol had gotten on my nerves. But this time, as I say, this time, yes, I am running for governor, Carol. You were just ahead of your time
There
with the
you
question.
go. I was ahead of my time. Well, and I know you were not happy when I asked that because everybody has been waiting. So here you are 10 years, I think it was about 10 years ago. Now you're finally doing that. So speaking of media, let me just jump in real quickly here. Congratulations, Governing Magazine. This is incredible. He's now a cover boy. He was on the cover of Governing Magazine, amongst many other titles. Maybe you don't like it that way, but that's what it is. As the most effective mayor in the country. You just got this like a week ago.
There was some reporters sat in my office and asked me some questions. I had no idea what they were doing. I was shocked when I saw that they put me on the cover. And governing is a big deal within political circles,
Yeah,
so
well,
it meant a lot.
That is a big thing. Well, just real quickly before we start with the questioning, you have been covered by the media, the Free Press, and others here, CBS, others who have been covering you. Your thoughts about the media, if you were to describe them?
Well, I would just say Jim Schaefer's research was deficient. I don't know about that Free Press watch, but I still have my Detroit News engraved Merriam-Webster dictionary for winning the 8th grade spelling bee.
Yes.
So, Jim, your research didn't go far enough back.
Jim, do we have any backups of those watches we can give the mayor to replace the one he lost or whatever? Anyway, so let's dive in here. By any objective measure, what you've had as mayor has been a remarkable run, is running the state's largest city. You could have held this job and run this job forever, but you decided to step down to run for another job. Why?
You know, I was born here. I grew up here. When I came out of law school, I didn't follow my classmates to New York or LA. I wanted to be part of the city's recovery because everybody who's from here knows this. It seems like for decades, everything was taken away from us. Our auto plants. I was at the first game of the Pontiac Silverdome where I was so angry they could call them the Detroit Lions when they played in Pontiac. And our movie theaters are gone, et cetera. And when I was running the DMC in 2011 and 2012, I was watching what was happening across America as you came out of the Great Recession, something I hadn't seen. Young people were pouring back into central cities, wanted to live around other people, and cities were booming across the country, and yet Detroit, street lights were out, parks were closed, ambulances didn't show up for an hour, and sliding toward bankruptcy, and the mayor and the council just kept fighting with each other. And politics was us versus them. It was black versus white. It was city versus suburbs. It was union against business. And I felt like Detroit's recovery wasn't that far away if we could just pull together. And so I had this idea that the people of Detroit didn't like this toxic politics. And of course, remember, when I declared 83% African-American city, I was pretty much dismissed, a guy who looks like me. People assumed voters of Detroit wouldn't consider me. But night after night as I sat in homes and said, we ought to have a city that's open and welcome to everybody, and that we don't have this kind of polarization. And the people of this city have now 3 times expressed their opinion in very large numbers. And I think part of the reason I felt like, homicide rates cut in half, unemployment rates cut in half, population's growing. But I tell you, the biggest thing I've seen is the politics has stabilized. And if you're watching this year's mayor's race, you can see why I felt comfortable. You've got really strong candidates for mayor. You've got really strong candidates for council, and nobody is running an us versus them campaign. It is all about unity. It's going to include everybody. They're going to build on what I've done and take it farther into more neighborhoods and the like. And so more than anything else, I ran to try to change the politics in the city. And I'm just so encouraged by what I'm seeing of the candidates who are up in this next cycle.
And your decision to run for governor?
All you got to do is look at what's going on in Lansing. I mean, it is awful. Everything is about us versus them, Republican versus Democrat. I've never seen it this bad. When you've got 20 Democratic senators and 18 Republican senators, every conversation is, does this bill help me keep the majority? Does this bill help me get the majority? Can I use something to embarrass the other party with? And 60% of the children in this state in fourth grade don't read at grade level. It's not 60% in Detroit, 60% of Michigan students. 44th in the country. Nobody's talking about it. We lead the country in people under the age of 30 who are moving out. Nobody's talking about it. And I finally felt like the politics in Lansing reminds me a lot of the politics in Detroit in 2013. These elected officials so obsessed with who's in control and how to attack the other person that I thought maybe the people of the state of Michigan want it. And so everybody who said to me I had no chance as a white candidate for mayor of Detroit as a write-in, just forget about him. All those same people are saying an independent can't get elected governor, so it's got me pretty excited.
When you were first elected, the city was under emergency financial management. Kevin Orr had the freedom under that to deal with things like bankruptcy, debt restructuring, city operations, some of those actions that would have been difficult, if not impossible politically, to have done the same things. I know you were not a fan of the hand you were dealt there, but as you sit now and look back at that, did some of those actions he took end up being helpful once you got back total control?
I think this mayor and this council would have taken the same actions. I don't accept that, but I tell you who the heroes of the bankruptcy were. Judge Stephen Rhodes and Judge Jerry Rosen. Stockton, California went into bankruptcy a year before Detroit. It's less than half our size, much smaller problem. They stayed in bankruptcy for 3 years. They've had nothing but financial trouble since. Judge Rhodes and Judge Rosen got us an order out of bankruptcy 12 months later, and the various lawyers and consultants in that 12 months made $170 million in fees. And if you had left it to their devices, this would have gone on for a long time. And I couldn't recruit. I never recruited a Chrysler plant or a Flexingate plant or an Amazon plant when we were in bankruptcy. But I will be always enormously grateful to the judges who got this done. But when I realized we were paying $500,000 to a law firm to review the bills of the other consultants, I said, this is out of control, and we owe an enormous debt to Judge Rose and Judge Rosen.
One of the things in your recent announcement about not running for the job and running instead as an independent for governor in 2026, and your recent State of the City speech, is you pointed to the workers and how not just people who work immediately for you, but municipality, all workers. And you did the same thing about talking up city residents with employers who were coming in here as potential employees. What gave you so much confidence in the civil servants and the city residents who wanted jobs and just were needing an opportunity? What gave you, because it's not been the editorial that we've heard so often?
So, of course, I spent 250 nights in living rooms and basements and backyards of the city. I knew exactly what folks wanted. And the most passionate people in the city were the block club leaders and the neighborhood association leaders. They loved their community. They just wanted somebody to shut down the drug house next door, get the streetlights out, and they'd take over. And it was inspirational. And I tell you, Karen Whitsett has been in the news, but when I met her, I was invited to the Littlefield Block Club, and I went to their community meeting. And their block club president just beat the hell out of me. The alleys aren't cleaned up, and this isn't. I finally got mad at her. I'd never met her before. And I said, what are you doing? And she said, come out Saturday and you'll see. And this was Karen Whitsett. And so I didn't believe her, but Saturday at 10, I drove over to Littlefield. The entire street was shut down. She had 40 volunteers up. They were sawing wood, boarding up abandoned houses themselves, cutting the grass themselves. This was the passion in the neighborhoods in Detroit. And believe me, from then on, I made darn sure that the city of Detroit supported them. And I can take you neighborhood by neighborhood through this city. The neighborhoods that have come back the fastest are not necessarily the wealthiest neighborhoods. They're the neighborhoods with the strongest block clubs. This city is coming back because the people who stayed were passionate about bringing it back, and they just needed a little bit of help from city government, and now they're getting it.
Amongst the many accomplishments during your career, the revival of the downtown area, obviously, as mayor, which has been a big thing. Folks may not remember, but you were deputy county executive at the time that Ford Field was built, and Comerica Park. many other things here. I'm just curious, as you look back at these things, where does the revival of the downtown rank on your list of Mike Duggan's things that you're maybe most proud of, or?
You know, I think what has happened, particularly along the riverfront, and it started with Matt Cullen and the Riverfront Conservancy, and now it's broadened far beyond. You know, we were the #1 river walk in America, that's fine. We are becoming the #1 riverfront in America with all of the new parks that are being built. And the city of Detroit never had a unifying place where people of all races would go. You look at the restaurants, the music, the churches, we have always been a segregated community. You go down to the Detroit riverfront on a weekend and you see what we've got. And this is the important thing. The young people that we have to attract, every city has to attract, they want destinations where they want to spend their time, they want to live. And we've created that. And I think about how we got there. I was at DMC around 2010 or so, and Dan Gilbert called me and said, I want you to come to this meeting I'm doing on placemaking. I'd never heard the term before. I said, Dan, what's placemaking? He says, we have to attract the young people of the future. You've got to really think through your area and plan it out. I got this idea for Campus Martius. And I'm listening. I said, Dan, why shouldn't the city government be doing that? And Dan's like, yeah, really? Yeah. And so I went to the first placemaking meeting. And we have been so fortunate that people think about Dan Gilbert and the buildings, but the leadership we have had in this city, in DTE building out spectacular Beacon Park, Campus Martius, all the corporations who donated to the riverfront, what the Illiches are now doing on the entertainment district, what Arn Tellem did, bringing the Pistons back and all those concerts. All of these people have created a city where folks want to live, want to work, want to visit. But I worked in Detroit from my first day in law school, my first summer job, and at 5:30 at night, the place was empty. People drove in at 8 in the morning, drove out at 5:30 at night. Now there's bigger crowds on the street on Saturdays and Sundays than there are at noon on a Tuesday. And that's really the future of the city. We should be not just a place for people to drive into work. We should be people's homes.
You referenced a little bit about this, but when it comes to making a comeback with the corporate community, believing in its leadership, talk about folks like Bill Ford, the Ford family, the Nicholsons, who are out here as well, the Roger Penske's and Dan and Jennifer Gilbert. I mean, there's, and the companies, the Henry Fords and others who, the Henry Ford Healths, which are doing so many different things. What have they meant to the city's turnaround?
So I don't think a lot of people realize how long the business community has been fighting along with the block club groups. But in 2006, Detroit got the Super Bowl. It was a part of the deal for building Ford Field was that the NFL committed it. The city was not ready to host a Super Bowl. But Mayor Kilpatrick had the good sense to call Roger Penske. Roger put together this committee I was a part of, but he was the force behind it. It was amazing to watch. He was around with his trucks cleaning up the city, painting these billboards, and he didn't have any gain for himself. And out of that, he created the Downtown Detroit Partnership that's led to the beautification today. Then about 4 years later, Mayor Bing had to go to him because the city was down to 8 ambulances, was missing police cars. They raised millions of dollars in private donations to buy the ambulances and the police cars for the city of Detroit. What Jim Nicholson did, 20 years ago, I was driving the neighborhoods on the east side with that employment base they have at PVS Chemicals. He was the last person that stayed in that neighborhood, and now that east side corridor among Harper is coming back. I can go person by person. Of course, Bill Ford, young Bill and I put together the deal to bring Ford Field back from Pontiac, and now a couple years later put together a deal to redo the train station. You think of the decades of the Ford family's commitment, it's probably been more than decades, to the city. All of those folks have stayed committed. And this is the thing that I always look at. I can go to a neighborhood and see the third generation family that's there, that's leading the revival of that neighborhood. And then I can go downtown and see some of the biggest corporate successes in America who love this city so much they're putting their time and their resources into Detroit. And together, it's really been everybody that has brought this city back.
Something else that doesn't get as much attention, but is very paramount, of course, too. You're a former hospital CEO. You have an appreciation, obviously, for major healthcare systems, the impact on a community, what they can mean. Folks like Phil Incarnati and McLaren, working with Wayne State and Grand Rapids-based Banff Health is opening their second cancer treatment center in Michigan at Dan Gilbert's old jail site. And then you have Henry Ford Health, obviously, aided by Dan Gilbert and his wife's in memory of their son. Huge donation help with that $3 billion investment here. I think you could say that it's medical tourism coming to life here. Talk about how your prior experience as CEO of a healthcare system helped you to understand how much healthcare could be an economic development driver.
Well, if you go to any big city in America, you will find really quality community hospitals in the suburbs. But the high-end specialty hospitals are in their downtown, whether you're in Philadelphia, whether you're in Chicago, whether you're in Baltimore, et cetera. For 20 years in the city of Detroit, every hospital that made a decision moved out. Those who've been around remember Sinai Hospital, or remember Samaritan Hospital, Doctors Hospital, Northwest, Mount Carmel. You can go right down the list. Two hospital systems did not move out of the city. It was DMC and Henry Ford. And when I was there, DMC put $850 million into rebuilding. And now what Henry Ford is doing is absolutely spectacular. But healthcare is a huge part of the economy of this country and this state. And the city of Detroit was being hurt badly economically by the departure. But now I make it a point to swing by Grand Boulevard and look at those cranes in the air of what Henry Ford's doing, what the Pistons are doing, what Michigan State's doing with this $300 million. Michigan State's building a $300 million research center. It gets almost no attention because it's being dwarfed by $2 billion at Henry Ford.
You are a huge sports fan, as everybody knows, but you have, unlike all of us, the ability to put the city on the world stage when it comes to attracting major events. We have the RMC, the NFL draft last year, the Grand Prix return to the streets of downtown Detroit, and your closing act, when it was announced that 2027, the Final Four will be downtown. How important, I know that Visit Detroit has had a hand in that as well, but how important are these events to changing the city's image?
They're important if you pull it off well.
Good point.
You know, and you've had some national issues in things that have harmed cities, and you know, a couple of idiots with guns can spoil your national reputation on the wrong day. The amount of effort it takes to make sure that didn't happen. But you know, we made a big bet with the NFL draft, and I've talked about this before. I was at Kansas City. I was at Las Vegas, and they held their draft at a huge park way away from their downtown where it could be self-contained, and everybody came in and out of the gate, and it had almost no benefit at all in the main city. We were so confident in our police department and our corporate partners that we just did it in the streets of downtown. And you not only smashed the NFL records for attendance. Now Green Bay's doing it, and they're going to do it in a fenced-off park area. I'm sure they'll be just fine, but they will not produce the same kind of numbers. But you look at the way Detroit shined on the national stage. And of course, the Lions have attracted a great deal of attention to us. And the way the Tigers are starting out, they could get us a lot of attention this year. But are you ready? You know what? People have images of Detroit from the bankruptcy and all the other stuff. The only way that image gets changed when somebody visits here. And I hear from people over and over, oh my God, I can't believe what I found here. And so we're going to keep pushing opportunities. But the number of people I ran into last summer on the streets of Detroit who said, I came down for the NFL draft, I brought my son back for a Tiger game, I brought my wife back for a weekend. We have to make sure, and we're already planning, for April of 2027, when the country will focus its attention on us again for the Final Four. And I'm confident the city will show off well again.
Do you think, does the city of Detroit stand a chance of ever having a Super Bowl again in the near future?
You know, Claude Molinari and his team are here. These guys have been remarkable in their success on landing things. So yeah, we'll get a Super Bowl back.
Claude, you wanna give that a thumbs up? Pressure, the finger is pointing your way now. So So population is, he says laughing, saying, go the other way, go back, go back. So population here is increasing in the city for the first time. Crime is down, but some neighborhoods still have problems and lots of work to be done there. What's going to be the next mayor of Detroit's biggest challenge?
I think we still have to build the economy of the future. I sat down with my team 11 years ago with a 20% unemployment rate and a lot of unemployed folks who had high school degrees who wanted to work. And I said, we have to be the best city in America at landing manufacturing plants. And we've done it with the Chrysler plant, the expansion of Factory Zero, and Flexengate, and Lear, and LM. I can go over and over on all the plants we landed, and we more than cut the unemployment rate in half. The next generation is going to be the tech-related companies, the companies of the future that are investing. And so our team right now is making that shift. And I'm spending a lot of time in Silicon Valley. It's the damnedest thing. The Silicon Valley companies keep inviting me out to speak at their conferences because they want guidance on how to get San Francisco's city turned around like Detroit. I said, I never thought. But I'm in a national conference where Elon Musk is speaking before me and Sam Altman is speaking after me. And I'm there because they want to hear why we have no tent cities in the city of Detroit. And that took a partnership between mayor and council to build $1.3 billion of affordable housing. There was no shortcut. You didn't see any bickering between us. We got down to work, we made a commitment, and we did it. But while I'm there, I keep saying to them, you tell me how Detroit will be on your radar the next time you expand your businesses. And the AI is going to be huge. We're not going to displace Silicon Valley or Miami, but there's going to be AI manufacturing. Can Detroit figure out how to beat, God help us, our competition is Columbus, Ohio. And we are losing to Columbus over the Midwest Center for Tech Jobs. Columbus has got no natural advantages over us. They've got a leadership advantage right now. And I think it's up to the state of Michigan and the next mayor of Detroit to say this should be one of the great employment centers of the future.
Joe Biden was a good friend of yours. I presume he still is a good friend of yours.
Absolutely.
You cut your teeth in politics at the feet of the late, great Ed McNamara. My point is that you weren't just a Democrat. You were a highly connected one.
Right.
I have two questions about that. With all of that said, why would you leave the Democratic Party?
You know, I feel like the Democratic Party left me. I joined a Democratic Party in the 1980s that was on the side of working people, level the playing field, get everybody an opportunity. And I've just watched as what has happened. And the working people of this country feel like the Democrats don't relate to them. They voted for Donald Trump knowing he wasn't in their economic interest, but they were so angry at the real disrespect. And you have seen it. The Democratic Party, really since Obama left, has been defined by two principles. The only thing that unites Democrats, they hate Republicans in general and they hate Donald Trump specifically. And that's basically been their platform. You know, Donald Trump is a fascist. Why are you running ads like that? How about talking to people about what you're going to do for them? And really, I just tell you the truth about this is what's going on. So I'm running as an independent, saying I think this death grip the two parties have, and the Republicans aren't any better. You saw John James declare last week, running for governor. He's running for governor because the Democrats have ruined Michigan. The Republicans' main thing is they hate Democrats, which means every election is the most important in history, because if they make you scare you about the other party, it does become the most important. So I said, I'm going to try this. I don't hate anybody. I just want the kids reading. And so let me tell you why I left the Democratic Party. Here's what they did. The Democratic Governors Association, which funds the candidates, immediately announces in Washington they've got a $3 million ad campaign that they're raising the money to smear me right now. They hire an opposition research firm who starts sending Freedom of Information Act requests to get dirt on me. And they're calling around local Democrats. So the first one that comes into the city is all the records of the renovations of the mayor's office in City Hall. We had to tell him I actually never renovated the mayor's office. So the second one came in. All of your the mayor's travel expenses. I had to say to him, I actually have never charged the taxpayers of Detroit for any of my travel in the 11 years. The third one came in. This is my favorite. They have sent a Freedom of Information Act request for all emails I've sent where I use swear words in the emails. I'm not making this up. And I thought, the Democratic governors are researching whether I swear. I thought, have you met Gretchen Whitmer? I mean, she's raised her vocabulary to an art form. And so they're not asking what's his record on neighborhoods or housing, but as we sit here, city lawyers are going through 11 years of my emails to send the Democrats an email in which I use a swear word so they could do an attack on me. This is why people are fed up with the two parties. And so I just decided, you know what? I'm going to give folks a choice. You are going to see the nastiest cycle in 2026. The Democrats hate the Republicans. The Republicans hate the Democrats. You got to vote for us because the other one's so evil. I'm going to run an ad saying, if you're tired of this politics, I'm going to give you a different choice. Let's educate the kids in the school. Let's keep our young people in town. And let's build together on the reasonable people in both parties. And if you want something different, I'm going to be there as your choice.
So, do you swear a lot in your emails?
I won't say I'm perfect, but I don't think they'll find anything in an email. But if they do, I'm sure you'll be reading about it in some social media ad.
Would it rival the late Mayor Coleman Young, perhaps?
Oh my God! Right. If they went back a few years, it was funny. They listed like 25 vulgar terms to search, some of which I'd never even heard before. So I don't know. I don't know about this opposition research stuff the Democrats do. I'm sure the Republicans will do it too, but so far it's just coming from the Democrats.
When it comes to leaving the Democratic Party, had things turned out differently in 2024, had Joe Biden, had the situation changed, Joe Biden made it in, he had been reelected, would you have still left the Democratic Party?
You know, I don't know what my focus was Lansing. And I'll just tell you this story. I tried to pass last year a land value tax, which I would have told you is the easiest thing I've ever done. I got 30,000 vacant lots owned by people who live outside the city. They don't cut the grass, they don't clean the trash, and they pay $30 a year in taxes. I said, how about we triple the amount of your taxes that are on the vacant land, and we cut the taxes on your building, so virtually every homeowner and business gets a tax cut. The speculators, the surface parking lot owners get an increase. And so I do what I always do. I've worked with both parties, so I get Matt Hall and the Republicans in. I fed them all lunch, House Republican Caucus. I said, here's what I want to do. Meeting went great. Republicans, tax cut, we're with you, Mike. I said, that's great. Then I got, next day, Joe Tate, the Speaker, my rep, brought in the House Democratic Caucus. Tax cuts to Detroiters, we're with you, that's great. Joe Tate says, this bill is terrific. I'm going to sponsor it. Now, normally a speaker does not sponsor a bill in Lansing. Usually that's out of tradition. As soon as Matt Hall, the Republicans, realized Joe Tate's the sponsor, said, you know what? You haven't taken up any of our Republican bills, Mr. Speaker. We're not going to support your bill unless you take up 2 of our Republican bills. And I went to Matt Hall, who's not a bad guy. I said, okay, you can vote no, but I want your caucus there with me. He said, oh no. No Republicans will vote for this bill if Joe Tate won't take up unrelated Republican bills. So I go to Tate. He says, no problem, we got the majority. Joe Tate and I go into the Democratic caucus. I've never seen anything like it. He says, we need all 56 of you because the Republicans are voting no on tax cuts in Detroit. First hand goes up. Mr. Speaker, I got a rent control bill that you haven't taken up. Second hand, I got a police reform bill you haven't taken up. 3 or 4 on the left wing of the Democratic Party sat in that caucus and said to Joe Tate, I won't vote for tax cuts in Detroit if you won't take up my bill. The bill never came to a vote. They were so obsessed with their Republican Democratic agendas. And this is happening on issue after issue. I walked out of there and said, this is what Gretchen Whitmer's got to deal with every day. I don't know how she does it. And you know, she ended up vetoing 9 or 10 Democratic bills this last session. They're so out of control. I finally said, either I'm not going to run for governor at all. I have no desire to be in Lansing and not be able to get anything done. That's just not me. Or maybe I'll give people a choice, because there are reasonable people in both parties. And I just think back to Detroit in 2013 when everything was us versus them and nobody could imagine a different kind of politics. And I go to Lansing and see us versus them and nobody can imagine people of goodwill on both sides. I grew up in a house where my dad was a federal judge appointed by Ronald Reagan. Okay, we had lively family discussions. We didn't hate each other. We weren't afraid of Thanksgiving, right? We could talk, right? We got to get back to that. And so I thought maybe I can help, and we'll see whether the people of Michigan agree with me.
My last question on you leaving the Democratic Party, I promise. You're very powerful within the party and very influential. Did you ever think about, before leaving it, trying to get involved and try to help change the party at the statewide level?
That was why I endorsed Joe Biden for president in 2020. Remember, people thought he couldn't win. And he did what he could to try to govern from the middle, but it's just too toxic. I tell you this, there's too much at stake. But do you remember what the TV ads were like last October? Every single ad was tearing down the Democrats or tearing down the Republicans, okay? Alyssa Slotkin was the one person who looked into the camera and said, here's what I want to do for you, and the voters rewarded her. But that was the exception to a toxic cycle. So I actually think that you've had a two-party death grip on this country for so long that the parties think that they own you, that you have no other choice. And so the last Gallup polling that does every year about, ask all Americans, do you consider yourself a Democrat, Republican, or Independent? Last year's polling, 27% Democrat dropping, all-time low. 27% Republican dropping, all-time low. 53% Independent and growing. Not one of you as business people would invest in the group that's 27% and dropping, but people have not had the choice before. And so I have to convince people that while they want an independent, I have to convince them that I'm the independent they want. And when I go out state, I got to tell you, people in Kalamazoo are not focused on Detroit. I've got to introduce myself. And so I'm going to be behind in the early polls. I'm winning the Tri-County area where I'm known. I'm not known out state. And so I'm going to be in every farmhouse, in every community. I love this stuff. And I'm going to see if I can convince people that maybe there's a different way.
There's a pro and con to every single thing that happens in this world. The pro to you running as the plus side of it, as an independent, there's no primary, you don't have to raise money for that, you just need to get the signatures for the ballot. But the downside is you lose the national party apparatus and the millions that can come with that.
Right.
So this is a very big state. How you feel about going it alone, and how optimistic do you feel about going it alone?
Well, for anybody here who thinks that's unfair, it's DugganForGovernor.com, and you can help level the playing field. So I tell my friends, you say, well, I think I'm going to be with John James, and I said, that's fine. If you're with John James, you have to donate twice. You got to donate an expensive primary, and you have to donate an expensive general. If you're with me, you only have to donate once. I'm going to spend the next 20 months talking about bringing this state together, and I'm not going through a bloody expensive primary for 13,000 signatures. I'm on the ballot in November, so there's no question about it. I'm at a financial disadvantage. The national Republican and Democratic money, they're already zeroing in on me. It's going to be there. And the question is, are people in the state of Michigan going to care enough to try to offset that with donations? And so far, people have been extremely generous.
All of us have 1,440 minutes a day available to us. That's this bottom line on everything. This is a huge, huge state, 2 peninsulas. You've praised City Council being great partners with you through all of this. We have 2 members here with us, Coleman Young and President Mary Sheffield, who's running for your job, in fact, and I think I saw Santel Jenkins, former City Councilwoman, who's also running for your job. Obviously, you can't predict the future, but is it possible you might leave office early to focus on your next goal before the mayor's race this fall, which, pursuant to a city charter, I think I read it properly, would make President Sheffield the interim mayor?
Don't even go down that road. I made a commitment to the people of the city. I would finish my term.
So you're not going to, no chance of leaving early?
I'm going to finish my term. Are you kidding? I am so focused right now on what we're doing. The staff is here. What they have to get done in the next 8 months, we have a weekly countdown on how many abandoned houses are left. We started at 47,000. Last week we're at 2,600. We are going to take them down every single week. But Sonia and I will move out December 31st. Hopefully, we're going to find a place to rent in Detroit for a year. I'm hoping we'd have other housing a year later. But I will be doing my job till the last day of December 31st. And the team is already working on transition. Whoever succeeds me, I came in, there was nothing but chaos. There are going to be binders and transition plans waiting for the next mayor, and it'll be a really smooth transition. As I'm telling them, with some luck, I won't be far away, and I'll be able to help the city.
One of the big events of the year is the Detroit Auto Show, and I know we have the Detroit Auto Dealers, Sam Clement and his folks all here, looking ahead to it. You've been to it now. You and I have talked about it, and it's been such an important part of our community for so long. Would you like to see it expand? Would you, for example, if Elon Musk and Tesla wanted to come to the show, would you be in favor of that?
For sure, I want everybody. So I love these guys. And the world is changing on us. I'm talking about the auto dealers. The world is changing on us. And the auto show was fabulous when the only time you could get 2,000 international press in one place was at an auto show, and they did their reveals. Well, now you've got extraordinarily expensive social media rollouts of every new model. What anchored the auto show is gone by technology. You can sit around and whine about it, or you can adjust. And what the auto dealers did this last year, and I think they're cracking the code, is making it more experiential. You could ride in all kinds of different things, but I keep telling them, and I hope this year they'll get it right. I love these guys. One thing they haven't done is, I'm prepared to close down streets. And if you've been to San Francisco with Waymo, where you can get in a car today that's driverless, just like Uber and Lyft, it'll take you somewhere, I think we ought to be closing down streets and demonstrating the driverless training on the streets of Detroit. I want to make it even more experiential. But I think the auto dealers are doing a great job. I think the direction they're going is the right direction. It is never going to be the entire world comes here with cameras for auto reveals again. Doesn't mean it can't be a great show, and I think they did a great job this year.
This morning, walking through the room here, and a couple people stopped me knowing we'd be talking and asked me to ask you this question. So I'm asking you on behalf of several people who I won't mention. We have a new person in the White House. Their policies and executive orders have been interesting, to say the least. The question that they want to know is, how are you going to work with the administration and making sure the policies don't negatively impact the city and all the great things going on here?
Well, you remember, I already lived through one Trump administration, and we had no issues in 4 years. I stayed off the president's radar. I didn't gratuitously tweet a tax at him, so he didn't pay any attention to me. And the federal funding flowed. Ben Carson was the HUD director. I had him and his wife Candy to the house for dinner. He was from Detroit originally. We got money flowing for lead removal and the like. And you know, I would say one thing. Gretchen Whitmer deserves enormous credit for what she's trying to do. She's getting embarrassed right now. Why? Because you had 150,000 people lose their power in an ice storm up north with poles down, and she wants federal help. You got 100,000 people in the defense industry centered out of Macomb County and Selfridge, and they need a new mission there, or Selfridge is going to close. She makes a decision. Some governors in this country, you got another big governor who's saying the Trump administration are a bunch of Nazi sympathizers. That's one way Democrats can go. Gretchen Whitmer says, I know there's huge political risk trying to deal with this president, but I'm going to do it because I'm trying to help the people of Michigan. And she gets beat up for it. Now, Trump is a master stage master. He did embarrass her. I don't think anybody ought to lose sight of the fact she was there to try to help the people of Michigan. And I'm not going out of my way.
Would you have gone to the Oval Office?
If I were invited by the President of the United States, I would have gone. And I've said this before, that, I've spoken out against the Canadian tariffs. I don't have to explain it to anybody here. There are 3 huge auto assembly plants in the city of Detroit, 2 Jeep plants and Factory Zero, the GM plant. These companies try to locate their supplier base within 50 miles. They have always treated Windsor as within that 50-mile base. The idea that you're charging 25% tariffs back and forth on the cars assembled in Michigan is going to do enormous damage. I've spoken out against it. The governor's spoken out against it. On the other hand, there's a number of areas where tariffs could be beneficial to the auto industry and manufacturing. If we had a predictable, good plan, it could work. The governor's advocated for that. I've advocated for that. But that doesn't mean if there's an opportunity to partner on something, I'm not going to say I'm going to refuse to meet with the president because he's from the other party. That's just not the way I think you get things done for your citizens. Maybe good politics in the Democratic primary is really bad leadership for your state.
I know Colin Bird, the Canadian Consul General, is here in the audience somewhere. Where are you? So how concerned are you with this whimsical on again, off again, well, maybe we're going to do a tariff, maybe we're cutting it back here. How concerned are you about what's taking place in terms of its economic impact on the metro region?
So we went from having no auto plants in this city in 20 years to basically citing 10 in the last 10 years. The way we did it was we became predictable. We could pitch every single supplier. Here's your site. Here's how fast City Council is going to approve you. Here's how fast we're going to move the permits. Here's what we expect you to do to give preference to hiring Detroiters. If you do those things, you're welcome. If you don't do those things, go pick another community. We've had this benefit because the mayor and the council have been predictable in the way they have treated these investors. What business wants nationally is predictability. And I am really concerned about the unpredictability of the climate. At first, I thought it was a negotiating tactic, but it isn't. I hope it gets settled soon for all of our sakes, and that the national strategy becomes predictable. And I think there's potential for a bipartisan tariff strategy if it were done correctly and done in a thoughtful way. And I'd love to see the two parties coming together saying, here's what we stand for as a country on what's fair trade and what's not.
You think that'll happen?
It doesn't look like it.
Okay, had to ask. So we have young folks here in the room. Curious, I know that bringing more young people here, keeping young people here, bringing more into the city and the region has been obviously on your docket for the last 11, 12 years. What advice do you give young people, particularly people at the table, the young table over at Marygrove there, about pursuing your dreams? You have set dreams and accomplished so many incredible jobs and done amazing things in there. But what advice would you give them now at their young age about setting standards and goals for yourself?
I talk about this all the time. When I went to apply for law school summer clerkships in my first year of law school, and I only applied in Detroit, all of my classmates said, are you crazy? You can go to New York, you can go to LA. I came to the city of Detroit. I got opportunities, private litigation, county attorney, deputy county executive, prosecutor, DMC. I'm now on 6 careers in the city of Detroit because I ignored my friends and followed my heart. And Detroit is a city that is big enough to matter in the scheme of things, but is small enough for you to matter and make a difference. And the state of Michigan, I feel like, is the same way. And so if in your heart you want to stay here, and who doesn't love the quality of life here, right? But it's up to the government to give you real opportunities and the kind of jobs you want to pursue and the kind of careers you want to pursue. And I don't think we're doing a good enough job of that. And so I would say 2 things. I am going to work really hard to bring the businesses and the industries of the future here to the state of Michigan. And I'm hoping that our talented young people choose to stay.
You have been a big proponent of internships for young people. And from the day you came in, that first summer, and you've done that over and over again, I'm talking of internships. How do you think we're doing at creating these opportunities for the young folks here?
It is, Dan Gilbert started in a huge way. In the city of Detroit, we get 40 or 50 every year, and I go across the country to the HBCUs. I went a few years ago to Harvard with Jamie Dimon, who helped me pitch summer internships at a Harvard conference. And so at the end of it, all these kids came up from all around the country. I've got this opportunity in Detroit. Where should I stay this summer? And then a young woman came up to me and she says, I'm from Detroit. And I said, really? She's a Cass grad. And I said, did you ever think you'd see this? And she says, no, I studied my whole life to get out of the city I got here, and everybody wants to move back to Detroit. She says, can I get a job with you this summer? And I hired her into City Hall and brought her back. But when she told me the story about kids in Detroit studying hard so they could leave, you say, we have changed things now where you can have a future here. But in this state, we have a lot more to do. Grand Rapids has done a really nice job of it. Detroit's doing a nice job of it. But we need to create these kinds of opportunities across the state, and and I think we can do it. It is just not right to say to people in rural areas, go to college and move to a city, which is unfortunately what the Democratic Party has said for far too long. We need to create opportunities in these communities, and this is what I'm learning as I sit in these towns. People don't want to leave this state. They're leaving because they think the opportunities aren't here.
How many of these little, you had what, 270 meetings?
Yeah.
As running for
Well,
mayor?
I'll beat it this time.
Okay, you'll be more around the state here. So when you stop and you look at the city and everything taking place right now, when you look down the road, what do you hope will say about it 10 years from now?
You know, we had last year 200 homicides, which is down from 400 when I started. But that's still 200 of my constituents who got killed. And that to me is heartbreaking. Boston, same size population as Detroit, had 28 last year. But Boston did it with a 20-year strategy of combining good police enforcement, good support from the feds, and violence prevention in the communities. All of the things that we are doing now. If the future administrations continue in this direction, you got Chief Todd Bedison here, you'd be out of your mind if the next mayor doesn't keep Todd Bedison as the police chief. If this continues on, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you could see the city of Detroit with the kind of numbers Boston's seeing, the violence gone, the kids not going to sleep to the sound of gunfire. If we stay the course, that's what you're going to see in Detroit in 5 or 10 years.
And just real quickly, an education front, which again, that's a whole other talk show, but just real quickly, what will be the magic bullet to help improve the test scores and things like this?
There's not a magic bullet. There's like strategy and metrics. But how in the world does Mississippi go from down here to up here? Well, we go down to number 44. 43 states have figured out how to teach 8-year-olds to read better than we have. Now, what do you need? Emphasis on phonics, accountability in the classroom. I think the people of the state would put more money into classrooms if they thought it was going to make a difference. The kid who's fallen behind, you can't have the teacher diverted from the other 29 kids in the class. There's got to be support there. Why are we not investing in tutoring? You know what happened during COVID when the schools got shut down? The first schools that shut down, even before Governor Whitmer gave the order, were Ann Arbor, Birmingham, Bloomfield, and Grosse Pointe. They were already half online in their education process and their communications with teachers. When the Detroit schools shut down, we realized the kids in Detroit don't even have a laptop. And Wendell Anthony, Jerry Norcia, and a number of others raised the money to buy 30,000 laptops. Then they realized the kids didn't have an internet connection. They had to buy 30,000 hotspots, hooked up all the kids in the Detroit public schools, and then found out the teachers didn't have an online curriculum. The gap that happened between wealthy districts and poor districts during COVID went like that. And when it happened, and you saw it happening, instead of pouring significant resources into tutoring and closing that gap, we just keep on going. There are strategies that work. When are you hearing the Republicans and Democrats say, look, we can fight about other things, but when it comes to educating our children, let's have a curriculum and resources and accountability that changes their direction. It's what I do, and it's what I'm going to do if I get to Lansing.
I did not realize you were a champion debater in high school, which is, that's rather amazing. That's great. But so let me ask you to put your writing cap on here a second. If you were to write the headline on the Mike Duggan story in your life, what would that headline be?
Never thought about it.
Here's your chance.
Yeah. You know what? I love my city. I love my state. I never left, and I did what I could to make them better.
Nicely said. Is there anything else, any words you want to leave as a final thought here for folks in the audience? You've all lots of CEOs, people of influence and business and politics here. Anything you want to say?
You know, a lot of people in this room have been a huge factor in Detroit's recovery. I just want to say thank you to all of you.
Yeah. Nicely said. I want to thank you, Mayor Duggan, candidate for governor for the great state of Michigan, for taking time, sharing some interesting insights into things going on here. Really, really appreciate it. And appreciate all of you getting up so early this morning. And for all the sponsors in the room here, again, thank you, thank you, thank you. Stay tuned for an announcement about our next Breakfast Club event. And hold on one second. Did you want to do a media scrum?
Sure.
Okay, so for the media in the back, the mayor will be doing a media scrum off. Do you have a preference where, over here? Okay, he'll do.
I'm right in the center.
Okay. Oh, cha-ching. Nicely said, nicely said. Okay, so they'll be somewhere up here, somewhere up here. The roving mayor will be having a media scrum for the media in the room who may have a few questions. So thank you again, safe travels. Everyone have a great Monday, a great week, and thank you again.
Yeah.